Hello everyone, welcome to the Free League Twitch channel. We are Telling Tales and we're running some Symbaroum for you today. We're currently running a sort of limited series story called Fetters of Stone, which is kind of a spin-off from our main campaign over on our own Twitch. And we've been off your screens for about a month because of life things, but we're here now. It's way too warm. So if there's fan noise in the background, I don't know. Just swear at us about it in the comments. That'd be fine. So before we do anything else, as usual, I'd like to introduce our stream manager, Steve, who helps us out behind the scenes with all kinds of things, images and cameras and moderating chat and all that good stuff. How are you today, Steve?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah.
Warm.
Not too bad there. I'm kind of.
You look cool, calm, and collected, Steve. You look in control. I have the demeanor and the vest of a man unhinged. So yeah,
there's a statement.
There's a statement indeed. If Steve pops up again, it's probably because something's gone horribly wrong. But don't worry about it. Let's get some promo out of the way before I move on to introducing our players. I usually talk about how there's links below, but there isn't because we're on someone else's Twitch. But if you search for us on YouTube or Twitch as Telling Tales RP, you'll find our links through that in various ways, whether it's on our link tree or otherwise. We've got all the usual stuff: social media, Discord, Patreon. If you're interested in what we do, we've also got just a ton of VODs on our YouTube from the series we've run over the last year or so: Symbaroum, Blades in the Dark, Call of Cthulhu, Coriolis, lots of one-shots playing things like Alien and Troika and Merkborg and all sorts of stuff. So please do check those out. We'd love you to come join us over in our own stuff. Yeah. But enough of that. Let's get on with Fetters of Stone and on with Symbaroum. And with that in mind, let's bring on our first player of the day. Let's bring on Chris, who plays Gara, Goblin Hunter, Ranger, Scout type person. And just as a very brief summary, you're part of an expedition going from Thistlehold to the depths of Davakar. You've had a number of incidents along the way involving kind of Zarek villagers and even pirates and various exciting things. But now you're finally at the ruin where you've been attempting to go all this time under the auspices of Mariel Cohenor, the leader of your expedition. But why don't you tell us how the last session started, Chris? It started with a disappearance.
Yeah, so we were approaching the ruin, and we'd had, obviously the night before, this strange storm came and went, and seemed to take away one of our goblin companions, just who vanished. So the next morning, we conducted, with the assistance of Ambrian and Goblin alike, and some of the other Northerners as well, a full search of the area, and could find nothing. And eventually, everyone decided there was nothing else that could be done, and we moved on. We continued to make difficult headway through the forest, and it got a bit heated at one moment when there was a bit of a fight breaking out between one of our goblins and all the names. There's so many names.
There are so many names. It was between the goblin Alfbolg and Iaso.
Iaso, that's the name.
The somewhat irascible and unpleasant bodyguard of Mario.
Yes, I was going to say that's pretty much exactly what I've written here, except using far fewer syllables and less appropriate language. He and our goblin companion just decided to go at it and started fighting. And I was scouting at the time and was very suspicious of this, to the extent where I just stayed where I was and watched the forest, because there's been a lot of people reacting strangely and getting very nervous, more so than a normal trip to Symbaroum or Davakar, I should say.
Yeah.
But
much as a normal trip to Davakar exists.
Yeah. They find they were eventually reined in, although on our side maybe cheered along, for the goblins were not exactly against this guy getting a little bit of a knuckle dusting, but eventually this was reined in and there were harsh words and everyone continued on.
Absolutely. And I think also there was... let me actually double check where I've got. Yeah, okay, no, that's your stuff to be covered. Thank you, Chris. So let's bring on our next player now. Let's bring on Alex, who plays Vardamar, wandering mystic of the barbarian peoples. Alex, hi, and what happened next?
So the closer we got and deeper into the woods, those who were sensitive to it, of which Vardamar was at least one and Gedeon was another, felt this sort of sound or resonance or something that was increasingly uncomfortable the closer that they got. Gedeon gave no details about what it was, only that he was a bit surprised that it could be felt by anyone other than himself, and that sort of preceded our arrival at the ruin where we finally got to, which had these huge, almost featureless black stone walls, that no vegetation sort of around it, and there was a natural gap in those walls that we made our way through. And in the center was sort of this, vegetation-free courtyard, at the center of which was this whitish-gray stone or spire at the middle of. And the closer we got to the more intense the sound got, almost painfully. There were these insects suspended in midair that could be pushed about a little bit, but that were just sort of frozen in place. And the moment one touched the stone, that buzzing and that sound went away finally. Gedeon was very excited to have made it all the way there, but gave very few details about what we were looking for and where we should even go, saying only that we would know the thing that we were looking for when we found it. And so we proceeded to make camp, I think.
That's absolutely right. Gedeon, so far, the scholar who's travelled with the expedition, seemingly in the pay of Mariol Kohinoor, and yes, I think it's fair to say a singularly unhelpful man. To a certain degree. So there we go. Let's bring on our next player. Let's bring on Sam, who plays Shuglud, the leader, the goblin leader of the Varaguldru tribe, or what is left of the Varaguldru tribe, even more so now than when this story started. So, Sam, everyone made camp. Why don't you pick it up from there?
Yeah, I think... contrary to anything the goblins could understand, the Ambrians wanted to make camp inside these walls. The goblins did not like that idea, so we kind of had a camp just outside the wall, I think, with Fera as well. Was it Fera?
I think Aaron definitely camped with the goblins, and yeah. I think we said that Fera and Orel did as well. Yeah, if we didn't, then they did now. And I can see that Ferra's player Elle is giving me a thumbs up in the camera. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we camped outside. I think most of the rest of the group camped inside the walls. And the plan was basically just to make camp, and then the following day do some searching, which was gonna involve more or less searching inside the walls. That was most of the open area in the middle. I feel like is quite visible. And the walls,
it absolutely is. It's one big flat plain nothingness apart from the kind of monolith in the center.
Yeah, and so the walls have a few entrances. I think we do have a map somewhere, but basically there's one entrance in the top wall. There's one entrance in the upper part of the west wall. There's an entrance in the upper part of the east wall and the lower part of the east wall, and then there's two entrances in the south wall. And then there's entrances into the wall, and then the big, the open kind of gateways without gates are to the west and east.
Absolutely. And I think the only other thing from kind of the night of camping is there were definitely some kind of sounds heard, especially kind of outside the walls, which people couldn't quite put their finger on, but they seemed to be maybe the sounds of large animals. And I think people looked for tracks but couldn't find any. But there was definitely a sense of hesitance around that overnight. And then in the morning, the search commenced. Let's bring on our next player, John, who plays Aaron, a noble Ambrian duelist, last son of a doomed house, etc. Yeah, John, how did that search go? Specifically, how did it go for Aaron?
Oh, it went great. We found stuff, which is the purpose of a search. So we split into two groups, which was conveniently the PCs in one group and the NPCs in another group. And as you could see from our map, we started searching the entrances on the south. 2 such entrances yielded nothing of any real interest. On the third one, we found a wooden staircase that Gara went up boldly. I started, but he quite wisely pointed out that he was a lot lighter than me, and it was a very rickety stairway. And then we heard nothing from him for a suspiciously long time. Charged up the steps to find out what was going on, and I found him having his blood sucked by some sort of large feline creature. Obviously, combat then happened, where it was us versus this weird vampire blood cat and a group of meerkats, which went not great, especially when Aaron used some of his fancy acrobatic abilities to disentangle himself from the meerkat he was fighting and join in the blood cat, or fighting against the blood cat that was trying to savage Gara, and then instantly just got downed in like one hit or something.
One shot down. Yeah, that's right.
So it started cool and ended badly.
Yes. But over the course of it, obviously, the group gained a bit more control. Aaron was kind of scrabbling around on the floor, desperately trying not to be disemboweled by this blood cat. But people got on top of it, including some kind of useful use of Vardamar's bend will mystic power. And then
some very fancy shooting from Gara, if I remember
some very
correctly.
fancy shooting from Gara, and some good blade work from Shuglud. And then the remaining meerkats were routed, and as they kind of dashed down the stairs behind you, the other search party, made up of kind of the other members of the Variguldu tribe, Serixatio, your kind of handler from Mother Mahira's agency in Thistlehold, and also Farah and Oral, basically happened along, finished off the meerkats. Farah applied a little bit of healing to Aaron, and here we are. They also mentioned that they'd found something. And let's not say exactly what that thing was, even though we did say at the end last time, because we're actually going to pick up with our final player, who wasn't with us last time, but let's say hi to Elle, who plays Farah.
Hello.
Abducted human, i.e. kind of like foundling taken away by the elves and then brought back into Ambrian society. Yeah, and you know what? We're going to pick up with Elle here. So let's. But before we go into a scene, can I have the map up again, please, Steve? The wonderful map there. Look at that. Wonderful. So yeah, as you can see, walls all around. There's those 2 squares over on the right-hand side are the 2 camps. And if you look down from them, you'll see like that's the first door they went into on that east side, which kind of had nothing in. And then the next one had nothing. And then the one on the bottom left is the one that had the meerkats in. So what we're going to do now is move back in time a bit and join Farah and her search party as they head in the opposite direction. So they're going north from where the camp is to that first kind of doorway there. So can I have normally in a lot of these I think I'd say let's like just have Elle on her own, but you know what, no, that's fine. We'll have all the camps here. It's all good. So yeah, Elle. So Farah has been assigned to this search party along with your close companion Orel, and you're there with 2 of the goblins, 2 of the remaining goblins, Alfbolg and Ull. Alfbolg being the one that had the fight with Yarso, and he's kind of like a big, bulky, kind of hench goblin, like the biggest goblin any of you have ever seen.
So I like Alfbolg. Because, you know, an enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Absolutely. And Serixatio is with you as well, who's typically kind of bleary-eyed and just kind of like...
hungover?
A little bit hungover. He's got his he's been sleeping in his heavy armor, his plate armor, and he's kind of got that huge greatsword like pinned to his hip, and he's striding north making sort of hungover noises and moving towards the that north door. Yeah, it's quite kind of a bright, very well lit day. Kind of, you can't see any clouds in the sky, and the two goblins are following kind of after him.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, as I was absent last session, my first question is going to be: did Farah get any of the, like, the pressure, the noise? Nothing like that.
But Orel definitely did. And
Orel definitely did. So I
definitely did and mentioned it to you. You were aware of it. It's worth saying though that we now know that 3 people had this: Vardamar and Orel and Gedeon.
Yeah.
None of them explicitly mentioned it to each other, although Vardamar and Gedeon kind of didn't talk about it, but it was clear between them that they were both feeling it. But Orel has, as far as I'm aware, kind of passed through it, unless Vardamar spotted it. I can't remember if maybe there was a vigilant roll for that, but he definitely hasn't expressed it out loud. But of course, he can communicate with you without talking.
Yeah.
So, but he has since touched the stone, and it's gone away.
And it's gone away. All right, fantastic, good. So I'm not. All right, so yeah, obviously, I'm just going to kind of gesture for Orel to just stay close to me, because I'm now concerned about him getting this weird head pain that no one else seems to have gotten.
Yeah.
And we are going towards the north wall, did you say?
You are. Yes.
The whole, north wall.
Well, northeast. Yeah, it's the northern entrance in the east wall. Yes.
So can we see anything without having to step through the entrance?
No, the entrance is you can just see the area where kind of the sunlight falls.
Yeah.
But because of the darkness of the stone and there's no light in there, everything looks very kind of oppressive, and you can just see kind of maybe dust floating down a bit in the shafts of sunlight. But no, you definitely need light to be able to see in there. And the 2 goblins are kind of peering in now. You've heard at least rumors that maybe goblins can see in the dark, but you don't.
But you're not sure
if they're true. And Serex is kind of fumbling with a rather bad bit of deadfall branch, which he seems to be attempting to wind some kind of material around to make a torch, but he's doing a generally
bad job of it.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm going to do is stroll over to Serex and just kind of say, look, let me take this. I know how to make a torch. This is where I fail how to make a torch, probably.
Sure.
And I'm going to take that off him. And I think obviously I have camping gear, I believe, stuff, or it's something equivalent to
an
that.
Explorer.
Yes.
It's called Explorer's Pack or something like that. Yeah. You do, and you know what? I'll at the end of this, you're going to have a torch, but let's roll to see how well you do it, because that seems like a fun thing between you and Sarah.
So what am I rolling for?
I'd say you're rolling cunning, and I'll give you a +4.
Excellent. So I've got to hit 13. Cunning is my dump stat.
Oh.
And I get 16. Hey, I'm really good at making torches.
Sure.
Proceeds to mess up making a torch.
You basically take it off Serex, who doesn't resist at all. He's kind of just very pliant. And you kind of take it off him, and you also kind of struggle. It's just not a good piece of deadfall to do this with, but you eventually put it together and kind of wrap it round, pour a little bit of what would it be, guys? Oil or paraffin, something like that? Do we think?
I'd assume it'd be oil. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit of kind of lamp oil is poured over it, and you manage to eventually ignite a flame with your tinder, and you're good to go.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of take Alfbolg, is it? Just slightly to one side.
The chunky goblin.
Yeah, the chunky goblin.
Hench goblin.
Hench goblin, and just be look, Serex doesn't seem to be in any fit state. Orel, I'm concerned about him because of his hangover. No, Serex has the hangover because of his psychic hangover. And saved it.
No,
I'm concerned about Orel. So much as I'm loath to do so, I believe that you and I should go in first with your other goblin compatriot, following up Serex, and then Orel, if possible.
Alpol kind of nods and says, "Yeah, good, fine by me." Do you want to take? He turns to Serex. Do you want to take the rear? Serex goes, "Ugh." doesn't seem to care either way. But he does kind of unlimber his great sword and wait for the three of you to kind of like walk into the darkness.
All right, fab. So yeah, going to just kind of proceed with me and Alfbolg, and with Torch through this door.
Yeah, so you walk in and the surroundings become very quickly apparent to you. The walls altogether, you would say, and I did have this written down in my the walls themselves are about 20 feet thick. So within them, there are room for chambers, but not terribly large ones. And as soon as you step into it, your surroundings become very, very clear very quickly. Immediately around you looks like a very old, sparse wreckage. So some very old kind of desiccated wood that may have once been furniture, you'd imagine. Some kind of scattered stones and a lot of kind of dust blown in from outside, kind of bits of soil underfoot. And as you turn and look to your immediately to your left, you see a darkness kind of opening up there, and it is what looks like almost immediately to your left a set of sort of shallow steps leading downwards. There is no kind of change in the air or anything coming from it. It's just, it looks, when I say it looks like a void, I don't mean literally there's a void there, but it's just dark,
very dark.
Steps leading down. Yeah.
I'll send a quick old thought note over to Orel and kind of ask him if he can sense anything from that direction, or if like his headaches have started up again or anything.
My head's it's fine. No, I can't. Why? What is there?
I'm going to let him know. I'm just look. It's nothing. It's basically all. I've just found some stairs, and I just wanted to make sure that you were not being affected just by anything that may be at the bottom of them before we go in.
No, I can't feel anything.
Okay.
As like you're having this exchange, Ull, the weapon master of the Varaguldru, has stepped kind of just ahead of you, and he's kind of a lean, lithe looking goblin who's got like a hand axe in each hand, and is just kind of like peering down. He's taking kind of like one step down, but he's kind of looking cautiously down there and kind of blinking to get the torchlight out of his eyes. And he just kind of turns back and shrugs at you.
I'll just kind of nod and hope that, because I can't be bothered communicating, hope that the goblins understand that means, yeah, sure, let's do this thing, and start walking towards the stairs.
Walking down. So you hear Serix behind you as he kind of follows in behind the group of the three of you, give a kind of grunt of surprise at seeing the stairs, and then you hear his like crunching footsteps behind you as he comes down. Ull is, unless you are going to take the lead. In fact, Alfbolg will be in front of you as well, so that your light isn't kind of in their eyes.
I'm happy with that.
And you can see Ull like in the front taking very careful steps, one down at a time, and kind of testing each stair with his foot and then taking another. And he's got one of those axes kind of like hefted up like that. You don't know whether to strike or to throw, but either way, he seems very well prepared. Can you give me a vigilant roll, please? And let's have it at... I think you're on edge and you're being very careful, but I also think it's quite dark here. So why don't you put a -1 on it for me?
Okay, so I've got to hit 9. And we all know how well Farah has rolled throughout this entire campaign. In fact, it sounds like I rolled better last week when I wasn't playing me. So
one roll was made for you to heal, and it succeeded.
And I did it, I know, right?
You are the Antom of this group, I'm afraid.
I am the Antom of this group, and it continues as I rolled an 11.
There we go. In that case, then, why don't you give me a follow-up roll from that? And what would be the best there? I think quick would be best. Why don't you just give me a straight-up quick roll?
Will do. I need a 13, and I rolled a 16.
Nice. Okay, you feel a kind of partly squishy, partly crunchy sensation underfoot, and a sharp, not horrible pain, but a sharp pain in one foot.
Don't like that. So I'll yelp in surprise and immediately followed by kind of like putting my torch a little bit closer to my own person to see if I can see what the hell just happened.
The goblins kind of wheel round in front of you, and you kind of lower it down. You appear to have trodden on what seems to be like quite a realistic doll made of sort of cloth and pieces of metal and sort of even kind of pieces of quite now desiccated wood. Like I say, realistic, like a very realistic child's toy doll. It is dressed in very unusual clothes that you can't really identify, like odd patterns on them and the like. You don't have anything like Lawmaster, do you? I think Vardamar is our Lawmaster. Yeah. It is also stuck through with several what seem to be golden needles. One of which is now in your foot.
So yeah, again, I have no Lawmaster or anything, so I'm assuming I will not equate this with ancient voodoo magics.
No.
All right. So in which case, I'm just gonna firstly remove this needle from my foot. Did I take any points of damage?
Yeah,
or is it just...
no poison or anything, but take a toughness because it's
take a toughness. All right. Yeah. Cool. So I'll just do that. Cool.
Oh, actually, no, give me an armor roll first. That seems fair.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's see. Medium. Cool. I will do that. D6. Jesus H. Christ! I rolled a 1.
Okay, take that 1 damage then. Yeah,
I will take that 1 damage.
Have you? If you rolled like a 6, I was going to say because obviously
you didn't take any damage.
The bottom of your feet aren't that well armored, but
yeah. All right, cool. So I've taken damage from this doll. Yay! So I'm gonna quite kind of angrily. I'm just gonna pick up this doll, kind of like look at it in disgust, and just throw it off to one side.
Fair enough. It kind of with a soft kind of, because most of it is kind of bundle cloth, right? And it just kind of splats sort of into the wall and drops down, and then you can hear it kind of like skittering, and the needles in it kind of like skittering down into the darkness below. And at that point, Serix says, "What's that?"
Child's doll of some sort. I don't know. It had needles stuck in it. One of them.
No.
Oh, I stood
behind us.
What?
I hear cries. He is wheeled round and is starting to kind of like pound up the steps with his greatsword kind of hefted onto his shoulder.
I will hastily follow as much as I can with my limping foot.
Absolutely, and you follow, and you know what? We could kind of role play the same scene out again, but yeah, you burst out into the ruins and you follow Serix, who's clearly his hearing is not affected by his drinking, and you dash into the chamber the other search party have investigated, and immediately confronted with a couple of meerkats, or rather Serix's. You kind of like dash in behind, and Serix just lets out this almighty roar that honestly is almost painful in your ears, dashes forwards 2 steps, and for a man who was borderline comatose drunk last night, he takes 2 steps forwards, and his greatsword swings in a huge kind of rhythmic arc that seems very well practiced in great kind of looping swings around his body and his head, and the meerkats. That when you dashed in, there were meerkats, and about 3 seconds later, there were 7 much smaller bits of meerkats, kind of along the floor and walls. You dash up to the stairs. Your other companions seem to have had a hard time, particularly the Ambrian noble, who you tend to until he can at least get back up on his feet. And we will open up the remainder of this scene. Obviously, Serix says that they found some stairs leading down, which is where we ended last time. And also, you know what, Aaron? I think At this point, Elle will also come investigate what the noises were, and she will have given you a herbal cure as well, which will raise you by another 1 toughness.
Excellent.
So now that's doubled your toughness, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So there we go. So yeah, we're all in the scene together now, guys. So go ahead.
Excellent. Right, so I've just tended to Aaron, haven't I? And we're all just okay, cool. So I'll just kind of open up with what in the hell happened here. Where did these come from?
What was the name of them again?
The smaller ones are called meerkats, and the large one is called, appropriately, a blood cat.
Meerkats. I think they were sheltering here, come in from the forest. And a blood cat as well. They're pretty rare. Oof.
Well,
Spicy
I mean,
fighters
everyone
as well.
survived.
Did they follow us in, or have they been here for a while?
I believe at the end last time, I think Serix and the 2 other goblins, Alfbog and all, kind of investigated further down, and they'd said that they found bones there where they'd been denning, so presumably they've been here a while.
Yeah, they're cave creatures. This is a lot like a cave.
Is it worth wondering what they've been feeding on if we haven't seen any other wildlife here?
Ull kind of shrugs and says, look like animal bones back there. Maybe their own kind. Some birds, things like that.
I think people have been here. Sorry.
We haven't seen much fauna here at all.
No, within the bounds of the walls, no. But you did hear them out in the forest the previous night, so presumably they leave here and just go out.
Okay. Pharaoh was just going to interject with, well, they may be feeding on animals, but I do believe that there have been people here at some point, possibly even recently. Before we ran up here, there was some sort of child's doll. Where we came from, stairway right to the left, and I stood on this doll. It was covered in pins and like golden needles.
This sounds weird to me. Do I have any record of what this might be? Knowledge of it? No,
I give me a lore master roll, and give me a lore master roll at -5, I think.
Yikes.
Yeah,
that's fine. When you're actually looking at it, you may be able to get a bit more information, but just from the hearing about it.
Nope.
No. Yeah, you've got no clue.
Well, I think this side's dry. Then shall we go and take the rest of the day off?
I think Aaron needs it.
Right, sounds like we have more areas to explore.
It's currently about noon, by the way, so you've got plenty of the day left.
Look, if the noble can still walk and hold himself, which he should be able to do after I've patched him up, I'd like to press on this entire area. Just there's something not right with it, and I'd like to just get in and out without spending multiple days here.
I can stand. I can walk. And if the doll was recent and there's signs of other people here, maybe they're still here?
Well, we won't find out if we stay here, so shall we?
Obviously, while nominally one of the leaders of the group, Serek, seems not in any fit state to be making any decisions. He's kind of rubbing his eyes blearily and sort of trying to spread a little bit of the insides of the meerkats off him. But the other nominated leader of these search parties was Shugled, so perhaps it's only natural that people look to Shugled for some guidance.
I look to you.
I agree. The sooner we can get out of this place, the better. May as well try and search all the entrances today.
So is the everyone kind of nods together, and Serek says, "You want to stay together this time?"
I think so. We're a little weaker now after that fight. Who knows what else we're going to find?
he kind of shrugs and says, "Lead on."
I will head down towards the entrance that had this. Well, I guess I don't know which entrance
Well,
it was.
let's bring up that map again. Yeah, handy map. So the ones with arrows in have all been thoroughly investigated, and like the one at the bottom left had the meerkats in. The entrance that had the stairs leading down in is the one immediately above the camp. So the entrances in the north and west walls haven't been touched at all. So I guess it's up to you guys whether you want to do the stairs or the other entrances first.
I think I'd say to Ferret, did you think there was more down the stairs, or had you reached the end other than this child?
We hadn't. We heard the cries of battle and raced back up. We've barely touched that room, and I figure it to be best to explore that room since that's the one where we seem to have stumbled.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. We can start there and see what we find.
Okay, that's great. That's what I get for removing a thing before Steve.
Stop.
Oh my god. I think we may have lost an Elle there by the look of it, unless Elle is remaining incredibly still.
Nope,
but we'll press on. So essentially, you kind of leave that chamber at the southeast, and you head up north, and that leads you past the camp, and you can see kind of Elmayer comes out ahead of you and kind of calls, because you can more or less hear people from this distance, because each of the walls is about 500 meters in length. So she's just calling about 250 meters ahead of her, because you can see the rest of the party kind of like gathered in the camp, kind of looking over, and Elmayer calls out, they're mostly fine, just some local wildlife. And there's kind of some nodding, because Mariol is there with ER, so you can see Gedeon over by the stone in the center of the thing, just kind of walking around it and studying it in some fashion. The dwarf Vladar is also back at the camp, kind of like sitting on like a rock and picking his nails with a knife. You walk past them back up to that the entrance with the stairs. And yeah, you head on in there. I see no reason why you wouldn't. You still have the torch. So we're going to head in there. Yeah, and it is as I described, shallow steps leading downwards.
I think I'll hang back this time because I took a bit of a battering. I assume that Aaron will do roughly the same. So
Yes.
maybe I'll give Aaron a torch.
You know what? Anyone who took any damage can take a herbal cure from Elmayer as well. So anyone who took any toughness can regain an extra toughness on top of whatever medicus they had last time.
Nice.
So there we go.
Blank.
Yeah, you enter into the stairs. So who's taking the lead here? And it's fine to nominate NPCs. Just all of the NPCs in a group go.
I think I'd probably try and send the other goblins on ahead if possible.
Yeah, they got part of the way down.
Yeah, they haven't been in a fight yet. They need some action. Send them
Sure.
First.
Then Ull and Alpbolg will take the lead again, walking down behind. I see no reason that did we say that Aaron's got the torch now because he's badly wounded?
Yeah, that would
Kind
probably
of
make
makes sense.
Sure. I think that's absolutely fine. So, yeah, you're proceeding down kind of as a group. Like I say, they're shallow stone steps made out of the same kind of material as the walls above. But you find that very quickly the stairs, the kind of walls give way from the black stone to kind of more packed earth with rocks and stones kind of like embedded in it, not seemingly on purpose, but just it's the natural, it's the natural surrounds. And as you walk downwards, the stairs veer slowly, or feel like they're veering slowly to the left. Ooh, looks like we've got an Elle back. the stairs are sort of veering slowly to the left as you're coming down. And as you're walking on the way, I think it's safe to say, because everyone's looking out for it, everyone notices that the doll is like lying in a tumbled heap on one of the stairs. I don't know if specifically Vardamar wants to take a look at it.
It certainly caught my attention as weird, which seems to be my remit here. So yeah, I'm going to go over to it and have a look without touching, at least for the start.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you give me a cunning roll, which I believe is your generic lawmaster check stat, and take a -1 on it because the light in here is not good. And
that's a 4, so I think we're good.
Okay, absolutely. This doll is most definitely Symbaric in nature. The clothing, the patterns on it are all very kind of very classically Symbaric things culturally, especially the patterns on it, which look very similar but not identical to Symbaric writing. You don't think they actually are writing or that they have words on them. It's just a very similar kind of pattern in the way that Symbaric writing and symbology is all kind of like lines and sharp points, like cutting through each other in almost like net-like patterns. Yes, it's definitely Symbaric, which means the people who made this are most certainly not here anymore. In the existential sense as well as in the locational sense, because it seems to be very, very old.
All right, it's like cloth, was it made of?
Yeah, kind of cloth, bits of desiccated wood, and even some kind of like tapped out pieces of metal that are kind of like holding some parts of it together.
Any of the writing, can I understand any of it, or is it a mystery?
None of it is actual writing, but it's just that it's the patterns are very reminiscent of Symbaric writing. But if it is, it's certainly not a dialect, Okay.
I'm going to very gingerly pick it up, being very careful around any of the needles there, and just sort of relay the Symbaric origins to the rest of the group there and how old it probably is as a result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Serex lets out a grunt to indicate his relative lack of interest.
Who keeps toys in a jail?
I'm not entirely convinced it's a toy.
I'm not entirely convinced this is a jail.
Is there a way to safely keep this thing without it stabbing me?
Yeah, sure. You can like just push some of the needles kind of like, further into it so they don't keep poking out and shove it in a pocket or something.
I probably just killed someone. Yeah, I probably just killed someone in doing it, but yeah, I kind of want to push them deeper in just in case, reserving the right to pull them out at a later plot relevant time.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
That's actually a good point. We haven't seen anything that looks like cells yet, have we?
Nothing about this resembles a prison, and yet they keep calling it that.
Okay. Are we proceeding further down the stairs then?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. You walk on further down. It continues to veer around to the left. In a confusing fashion, like you're just lit by torchlight and you're making slow progress. It's quite difficult to tell like whereabouts underneath you are now, but you think you haven't come down very far because these steps are very shallow, and as you turn, kind of rotate slightly again to the left, ahead of you, the steps stop, and opening up is what looks like quite like a relatively tight, maybe two of you can stand abreast, sort of corridor, although corridor may be giving it too much credence because, again, it's just packed earth and stone on either side. And from the packed earth ceiling above, there are kind of odd tendrils and roots growing, despite there being no vegetation in the open ground above. There are a mix of There's also kind of more tightly against the roof a mix of slightly thick rope-like roots and light spider web-like strands that sway gently as you kind of approach the front of them with this motion, because the air is very, very still in here and very silent. There is what looks like some kind of metal gutter running on each side of the walls, roughly near the top, that seems to be running off into the darkness ahead.
Sorry if I miss this. So we think this is leading under the kind of central area of this
It
place.
seems to be more or less, yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be very careful with the torch to not set any of this on fire. But I am also going to probably draw my sword and poke at one of the roots. I've had nature come to life and try and kill me before.
Yes, literally 2 sessions ago. Yeah, absolutely. You poke at the root and it behaves as you would expect a root, specifically a dead root, to behave. It feels kind of again, desiccated and dead, and just gives slightly when you poke it. It does not give off the sense of any kind of life or odd behavior or sensation.
Seems dead. Did the courtyard used to have plants then?
It would follow, wouldn't it?
Seems like whatever is there now has killed everything, but these roots seem to still... Well, I guess they're just the remains, but... None of this makes too much sense. I guess we head on. Can we see toward... Is there any end in sight of this passageway?
Not that you can see, but the torch only casts light about a maximum 15 or 20 feet ahead of you. Yeah, so no, not too much.
Guess we...
Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
The gutters that are running down the side, they disappear off into the darkness. Where do they start?
Just where you are at the beginning of the stairs.
That's weird.
They're kind of probably about eye height, just running along the walls, and the ceiling doesn't go up much further than that. Serix is kind of hunched over.
And there'd be nothing obvious that they'd be collecting, or no way for rainwater or anything?
That would involve examining them a bit closer. Because they're kind of just above your eye line.
Okay. I might have a look then to see if I can figure out what they might be used for, or what they'd be collecting, or
Sure, absolutely.
I was also going to have a look.
Okay, well that means you got light to do it then. So you head over there, and why don't you give me... I'll give you some information anyway, but why don't you give me both of you give me a vigilant roll.
50-50 shot. And a 1.
Hey.
That's fail.
Nice.
Okay, well, I'll just give you the flat-out information there, Vardmar. You come over to them already with a suspicion kind of growing in your mind, and you look over the top and see the kind of slightly viscous liquid laying in these gutters, and you sniff it and nod. It is, whatever it is, it's mixed with some kind of petroleum.
Oh, good. Would
like a very how do I want to phrase it? There's a lot of water and maybe some other substance and petroleum. It's not pure, it's not explosive or anything. It's
it's diluted maybe.
Diluted is exactly the word I was looking for. That
nice.
Somehow I could not.
I'll take some extra XP for that. Would setting these on fire set any of the roots on fire, or do I think it would be in any way particularly dangerous?
You think it may well be designed to be set on fire?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if having the roots growing through has made it...
No, they're mostly kind of not overhead. They're tucked into a slight recess on the side of the walls. You don't think you do that. In all honesty, if you set the roots on fire, you think just a couple of them would be on fire and then they go out. It's not...
All right.
Not maybe a horrible...
I'll look over at the group and say, does anyone want to see a magic trick? And I'll indicate to John to put his torch in one of the gutters.
I will do so.
With a kind of flare of light and a noise, that gutter just erupts in kind of a relatively modest flame that runs down ahead of you, on and on and on, and then round as the corridor curves to the right ahead of you. Yeah, it's pretty long. And it seems to be on a kind of gentle curve that kind of moves, like veers to the left and then round to the right, like almost like a very shallow semicircle ahead of you.
Well, if there's anything in here, I definitely know we're coming.
Are we doing the same with the other gutter?
It's up. I mean, with the man with the torch can decide that.
This is one of the points where I'm trying to wrestle between what John thinks and what Aaron would probably think.
Go on,
I'm
light
gonna
me.
say
It's not going to make it any worse.
No, I'm going to say he's canny enough to probably leave it in case they're each single use and we need to come down here again.
Sure. As you sort of make this rationale and maybe step forward with the group to start making your way forward again, you can see the flame appearing again in front of you at the very end of where you can see the corridor rushing back towards on the other side. It all must be connected.
Fancy.
Okay.
And the corridor is now quite well lit. It's like a flickering flame, and it's got an odd kind of yellowish green cast to it, presumably from whatever is in the fluid that is in these gutters. But you can certainly see pretty damn well.
All right.
I guess we head on. See what's at the end of this.
Sure.
So earlier, the stone in the center of the desiccated prison has magnetic properties, which we learned before.
Mm-hmm.
While we're making our way along, can I just maybe get a metal tipped arrow out and just see if those magnetic properties are impacting under the ground?
You are kind of you hold up the arrowhead. You don't feel any kind of tugging on it, but you're not sure at all how close you are to the stone here. So who knows?
I'll maybe keep that. Given I've got nothing else to do, I'll just keep that to my side as a little kind of scanner.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Incidentally, it looks like Elle may struggle to join us, but hopefully we'll again. Oh, here we go. Might be back with us. There's a hello.
Yes, so apologies, viewers. I'm assuming Matt has informed you, but it seems that there are problems with the internet provider in my area.
There definitely are.
There's definitely a problem. Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no. Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. Next time Elle comes back on, Steve, can you maybe kind of leave her off screen for a couple of minutes, just so we're not bringing her on and off. Thank you. So I take it the party is making its way forward.
Yep.
Does the composition change now that everyone can see, or are we fairly?
I'm still hanging back towards the rear of the group, just because better shots, I suppose.
Sure. Aaron, are you still holding the torch, or are we putting it out?
I think I'm going to keep hold of it in case there's a dark corridor at some point.
Sure, absolutely. Are we attempting in any way to do this stealthily, or are we just kind of like making our way forward cautiously with weapons at the ready?
I think that's well and truly out the window at this point.
Yeah, probably as well. Yeah, that's fair enough. So you make your way forwards around this corridor. there is very little to tell other than that it continues on as it is. You're starting to get much more of kind of the kind of bitter smell of whatever that is in the gutters now as you walk forward. Kind of, it smells like a little bit like being in like an old garage or something with the oil and the petroleum smells. And as you walk forward, you can see that ahead of you on the inner side of the corridor is what looks like an opening. And as you get closer to it and kind of peek around it, you can see that it is what looks like kind of another exactly equivalent corridor leading sort of to the right. And then very, very shortly, it has another corridor that seems to be running kind of parallel to yours on the similar kind of parallel curve round. And ahead of you, your corridor is continuing as before on kind of a long curve round to the right.
Do the fire gutters go into this corridor, or do they stay on the one?
They seem everywhere, yeah.
Okay. What do we think? We could head down to the end of this corridor first, or investigate each one we come across. Might be easy to get lost down here.
We'll leave some marks. The floor's packed earth as well, Matt, is it?
Yes, it absolutely is, yeah.
Yeah. I'll dig a little kind of direction marker. Right, make your pick, I'll leave a mark and we'll move on.
I say let's head to the end of this one first, then investigate whatever other corridors we find.
Yeah, I think we might as well clear this so that we have at least one place we know doesn't have anything that's going to kill us.
Yeah. Do you think, loaded question, that you'd carry on with this plan were you to come to other almost identical openings to the right?
Yes.
Just so I don't have to mention each one as we go. Would you follow the corridor round, and there are probably maybe 5 or 6 other entrances to the right as this slowly veers round, and eventually you come to the end of this corridor and it just kind of it turns sharply to the right at the end and then maybe looks like it's doubling back. It may in fact be that other corridor.
Parallel corridor.
Okay, but it's still the same. Like, there's no other. Once we get to the point where it doubles back, there's no like turn off.
I mean, it does turn round, like it moves round sharply to the right, but there's no other. No, the only exits you've seen from this corridor have been the ones. I should start calling it a tunnel because it's more like a tunnel in the corridor. The only exits you've seen are those ones on the right that led into what seems to be this double backed other tunnel.
I guess we keep following it until.
Just kind of follow it around. You definitely get deja vu as you turn around this other corridor, and now there are more. There are obviously the gaps on the right hand side of this corridor that you had previously passed in the other tunnel, but there are also sporadic gaps to the left leading to other tunnels, and they look a little bit more. It's not like just one long series of double backed. There are some that look like they veer around, some that look like, again, kind of parallel ones moving around to yours. After only maybe like 30 feet or so, it becomes very apparent that this place is perhaps not maybe an intentional maze, but either way laid out in not a terribly straightforward fashion that seems to have a kind of general sense of being concentric, but without any kind of logical sense to it. And that mapping out or trying to follow it round in kind of like a very paced, logical way might be somewhat frustrating.
Well,
how long have we been down here?
Why don't you give me a cunning roll?
Cunning is 10. Natural 1.
At first, you kind of that question occurs to you, and you kind of have to kind of stop and think a second. How long have we been down here? And then, probably about 15 minutes. and you don't know, like a fog lifting slightly. You don't know quite why you got confused.
Do we want to head back up? Maybe try and come up with a plan.
Maybe Gideon has some idea of what this is, how to get through.
Could do with some fresh air as well. I think my head's getting fogged with all this burnt oil.
Yeah, agreed.
I think.
Okay. Sorry, John.
No, go for it.
No.
I was gonna say, I think we need to figure out what we want. Are we trying to get to the center, or are we trying to explore all of it? Or is there another room?
Yeah, well, I mean, who's paying? What do they want?
I mean, this seems like a big task. Maybe we can find something in one of the other entrances upstairs that will give us some insight, or perhaps the people back at the camp.
Yeah, if nothing else, this is worthy of reporting, and I don't want to spend too much more time down here.
Yeah, I think we should end up dragging Gideon down here, and maybe he'll have something useful to say and can point us in a direction.
Sure. So who is leading the way out?
So I left the kind of markers, so I'll probably go take more of a point on the way back out.
Absolutely. Why don't you give me a cunning roll at -5, please?
Uh-oh.
I'll do with that one this time. Natural 20. Oh, I have 2 dice today.
Lost forever. So you start walking your steps back fairly confident as you go. You can remember how long you were down here. You can remember the way out. And you get to the first point. You're like, here's the marker I made. At this point where it kind of curves around like this, and you walk and look down at the ground. Nothing. There's no marker.
I think I got turned around here. This is the right way, is it?
We've been following you.
No.
Yes, sorry about that, everyone. I have no idea why I have Virgin Media problems in Manchester in a place. So there we go.
No problem. So, yes, lost in tunnels.
Should be. I left marks. There should be a mark here to say that we took the straight path. I suppose we can just take the straight path, and it's probably right. But there should be a mark.
Maybe
it's definitely the right
further
place.
along.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're convinced that this, somehow the mark has disappeared, but that this is definitely the right path, then go ahead.
Look, we took no turns away from the path, so if we follow the same path back, it has to be the right path.
Yeah, and it should be.
Oh, this is...
But the
no, carry on, Sam. Sorry.
The path we were on had the markings. But anyway, I agree. We have to follow this path. It's our best bet.
You stride back, fairly sure this is the way you came, and very quickly disabused of that notion, as kind of the tunnel you're in kind of veers sharply to the right and then to the left again. You definitely didn't come down a tunnel that did that, so this is rather unusual. And as you're kind of walking around in a long corridor again, veering round to the right, but that's almost like the one you came in at, and surely that doesn't make any sense because you seem to be nowhere near the stairs. As you're walking along, why doesn't everyone make me a vigilant roll? And we will take the person who does the best vigilant roll.
That will not be me with my rolls.
I got a natural 20,
2.
so I don't know if you want to take that into effect.
Hey, 2's pretty good.
2.
How do you do, Sam?
I got a 3.
Oh, not good enough. So, Farah, as you're walking along, you pass one of the tunnels off to your right-hand side, still looking the same as the others, with kind of twisted roots along the top, spider web-like strands of kind of filaments of plant-like material, and the flaming gutters running alongside it. And you just get you passed a dozen of these in the last kind of 50 feet or so, but you just get this sensation of someone watching you. Coming from it as you walk past it, not seeing anyone, just when sometimes you just feel like someone's watching you.
All right, I'm just gonna kind of say, kind of turn to the group and just say, look, all eyes. I can't see anything, but I can feel like something's watching us, and this place is throwing more tricks at us than I'd like so far.
It's worth noting, by the way, that sorry, I might not have made it clear. You felt like someone was watching you from that turnoff, which you have not looked down yet.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
That's all right. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna basically still pass on my message for everyone to be wary, because I think someone's watching. Possibly, like, I get the feeling, and then I'm going to tell everyone to proceed slowly, and if they can. So it's to the turnoff that we haven't gone down yet. You say?
Yeah, you are literally just walking past the turnoff.
Yeah.
That you have not turned your head to look down yet, and you feel like someone's watching you from it. I'm basically asking you, Elle, to tell me that you're looking down this direction.
I am going to look.
Right.
No. That's what I was gonna, tell everyone to be careful and then look down that direction.
Okay. Down that direction, you see for the first time since you've been down here something that is not a tunnel. You see what looks like a very tall, dome-like room, still made from kind of packed earth and rock, and with the torch gutter lining around it. At the center, which you can see sort of dimly from here, because in this chamber, the light from the torch gutters is somewhat darker because it's such a larger space to have to illuminate. But at the center, towering from the earth underfoot and seemingly piercing the roof above, about kind of 30 feet up, is the rest of the grey-white outcrop, now plainly a colossal crooked monolith.
I'm gonna say, well, I think we found the rest of it, and start to walk towards it, because I know that it's cured Orel of his psychic headaches. So,
do I feel any renewed sort of sense of that sound, or is it the same as the last time? And are there any insects floating around or anything else that seems suspended around it like there was above?
You'll have to walk into the chamber and get a lot closer to it to know that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. All right. Yeah, I think Vardamar has his own sort of reckless curiosity, and I think he's going to make his way in.
Okay. Is more or less everyone else in the group heading on into this chamber?
Yep.
Okay.
I guess so. With a slightly tremulous, this isn't where we were trying to go.
Oh, I think that's gone out the window, Aaron. I think that's long out the window.
At this point, I'm just happy to be somewhere that isn't a tunnel.
Definitely. As the group goes in, you can see more details around this. You can see that from your count, even just a short way of pacing around the chamber, around 6 times around the circumference of this crooked monolith, holes have been chiseled through the rock about 2/3 of the way up, so about 20 feet off the ground. Large iron rings have been locked into these holes, and from them, hugely thick iron chains are strung, sagging down and disappearing into the soil of the floor near the walls. Anyone getting closer than just a couple of paces from the entranceway to the chamber starts to feel that the same odd hum and kind of vibration in the air as they did above ground, a bit more intense down here, though. And anyone who gets kind of within, 10 feet or so of it will feel that same kind of gentle tugging of any metallic objects or material they have on them. It is quite clearly the same, the same stone, the same monolith. And also, can everyone make a resolute roll, please? And just give me a thumbs up if you make it. Got some thumbs up and some thumbs down. Cool.
My resolute was 7, so I was very surprised that I rolled
pretty good.
2.
So that's just Vardamar and Farah then. As you stride a bit closer to the stone, and this is a sensation that comes very easily for Farah, having just had a kind of uncomfortable sensation of being watched. Both of you feel like kind of that feeling that you're being watched just ramping up more, someone walking over your grave. Farah, you can feel kind of like the goose flesh standing up on your arms, and Vardamar kind of hair just rising at the hackles on the back of your neck. Just a very uncomfortable feeling indeed. Farah, you can kind of glance over at Oral, and he's kind of just, when you shiver, even though it's not cold, he's just kind of doing that and sort of bundling his robes a bit tighter around him. But no one else seems to be kind of affected. I would say it's visible enough that you kind of have an unconscious reactions enough that maybe the two of you kind of notice that each other feeling this.
Yeah, I'll look over. Gideon showed me touching the monolith itself seems to make it go away. I don't know if it's any different down here, but if this gets any worse, I don't think I'm gonna be able to avoid doing that.
It definitely feels slightly distinct to that kind of like hum and like this almost sound like thing. This is more running through you from your kind of like your skull down to the base of your spine, like just a discomfort.
Well, it's worth a try. We're in. I don't feel good, and I don't like this. I want to see if I can get any closer and touch it, and if it gets worse, I'll know that I have to back off. I don't want to see Aurel suffering like this.
Yeah. I'm happy to go first if you'd rather he waits.
Is anyone else in the group making a remark on clearly these three are feeling something that you are not?
I think, I mean, I'm spooked enough by this outcropping to realize it's not good, and as such, I'm not even getting close enough to it to think I'm going to kind of keep myself back away from anyone moving towards it, kind of with my back toward the wall.
Absolutely.
What is the matter with you?
Can you not feel it?
Surely you felt it in the courtyard.
Nothing.
Aurel's been feeling it since we arrived here. It's something to do with the stone.
Sorry, everyone can feel the kind of vibration and the hum, kind of like as you get closer. This sensation you're feeling. I mean, you can also feel the vibration and the hum, but to a certain extent, you felt that in the courtyard as well. And when you touched it, that deep resonating sound that you felt in the forest went away. This kind of like creepy feeling, this is entirely new.
Well, we've been feeling it since the courtyard, and then when we got here, it's like we're being watched. There's something like it's like there's something else here, something that knows we're here, something that's watching us.
I wonder if it's something that wanted us to be here in the first place.
I don't want to think about that.
Okay. I don't know if the same rules apply, but I think I'm going to try touching the stone. I'm happy to be first, and if it goes wrong, we'll know not to do that anymore.
Okay.
And,
okay.
Short of any objections, I'm going to make my way up to the stone and find a convenient place and barring anything. I'm going to look for any markings or anything obvious once I get close up, but if there's nothing significant.
The only things that don't look natural on the stone are the holes that have been chiseled through for the chains.
And they're 20 feet up, you said, yeah?
Mm-hmm. You can get to the chains because they kind of sag down to the ground, like they disappear into the earth. But
yeah,
so you can touch them if you want, but they're the only things that seem unnatural. I mean, everything seems unnatural, but you know
even
what
more unnatural.
Man-made.
Yeah, the only like human things about the stone are the chains and the holes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put my hand on the stone.
Okay. Could you give me a resolute roll, please, at -5?
Oh no!
It's been nice knowing you all. So
We loved you, Valdemar.
So -5. That does pass. That's a 6. That passes.
Okay. So when you touch it, the kind of like you don't get a cessation in that kind of like odd kind of creepy feeling that you have, and neither do you get any kind of sensation of the kind of vibration and hum or magnetic. Essentially nothing changes except you have the sensation, and it's only the briefest thing. You could even chalk it up to your imagination that when you touched the stone, something reached out. And you don't feel it physically. You just have the sensation that you briefly, like brushing again, like when you brush against something in a dark room and you're not sure what it is. But this wasn't physical. This was emotional. Okay.
Do I have a sense that it found me or that it was just reaching out?
Absolutely no idea.
Okay.
I swear to God, if this is a goddamn spider goddess again.
I mean, not my first choice. But no other sort of physical sensation beyond that awareness of a thing reaching back for me. All right. I will take my hand back and sort of turn back to the group. No specific relief from that, but I did feel, and I would only bring this up because I definitely get the sense that we're feeling something aware here. There was something that reached out for me, I think, and I don't know if it found me or us. There's a presence here. It's not dormant. There is definitely a presence going on here.
Well, clearly I think it already knows we're here. That feeling that the both of us experienced, we wouldn't get that for nothing. Could it be the rock itself? I mean, why else? I don't know. I mean, it's chained up, right? There must be a reason for that.
Is this the prison?
It's the only thing that's locked down, you know?
I have to wonder what's at the other end of these chains. They just go into the ground.
Are they sort of engraved or marked in any way, or are they just big iron chains that were going into the ground?
Solid iron chains.
They're attached to the rock, right? And they go into the...
Yeah. There are chisel holes through the rock, and the rings have just been looped and sealed through that. And then the chains hang down to the earth.
To a place that we can't... they go through them. We can't see where they end.
They go into the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They go into the earth somehow. You could go over and grab them, and it'd take a couple of trying to heft them up or something, but like they look,
very sturdy,
embedded. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if this is the prison, maybe this rock, I don't know, maybe it's somehow a warden. I mean, things are attached to it. It clearly does something. I'm concerned that is this rock keeping something here? I don't want to mess about with magic too much. I think we're in too deep anyway.
Is there anything else in this room other than
nothing?
So when you said earlier the rock is chained and there's holes chiseled in the chains, is the assumption that the chains are going straight through the rock and anchored at the other side, or are they anchored within the rock?
No, each chiseled hole has an iron ring through it, and the chain is attached to that ring and then dangling down, and the other end embedded into the earth. To what depth you have no idea, but it goes into the earth.
Farah's just going to quickly mention if this is the prison, that would also make sense. The rooms we were in beforehand, it was we couldn't make head nor tail of it. Yes. And if it's to prevent escape, then I think there's something else here.
A voice from behind you by the entranceway where you came in says, "It is a prison." Gideon is stood there in his kind of yellow robes,
Of course he is.
kind of pacing forwards and kind of looking up, somewhat rapt at the crooked monolith in the center of the dome-like chamber, and kind of as he walks towards it, kind of reaching out, just tracing the ends of his fingers against the stone.
How
So-
did you get here?
The same way you did.
Okay, you want to tell us what's... Ferrer's basically just going to stride over to him, like, staff in face, and just like, look, tell us what's going on, because something's not natural here. It's hurting me and mine. I want to know what you know.
He kind of turns slightly to you, like you're a distraction, and glances down at your staff and says, "So, leave. Go back up to the top. You're just here as, well," he glanced at the staff, "blades of a kind."
That's not what we were paid to do. And besides, safety in numbers.
It's
I am where the
exactly
group
what
is.
it's exactly what you were paid to do. I am in no danger down here. Neither
I
are
don't-
you.
We tried to leave already.
It is a concentric set of rings. Just keep on walking in one direction and you will find the exit.
You still haven't answered how you know so much about this. Why are you here in the first place? You know more than
Right.
any of us put together.
I believe that is for our employer to deign to discuss with you.
Is
And
Mario
I know
with us?
about it because I've... No.
No.
And I know about it because I've studied it.
Okay,
It's
so
kind of, you hear this at a slight distance as he kind of walks around the monolith on the other side, and it's odd. There's like, it seems like just a little too long passes before he appears on the other side, kind of walking around. Like it took just a bit too long for him to traverse out of your view, and he kind of he's carrying on walking around to the other side, just kind of examining the surface of this thing.
What is the presence inside this thing? What is reaching out to us here? What is watching us?
I think anything within here has been asleep for a very long time, Vardamar. And I'm not surprised if it, in its slumber, decided to turn over and perhaps show a little bit of itself to you. But the quick answer is I do not know.
Finally, we agree on something. Is this what we're looking for?
Partly.
I think
Yes.
sorry, go on.
Also should be an armory of sorts. More mundane things. That Mariol is very interested in.
So is it something of a joint effort? You're interested in this, she's after the armory, and you both win?
You could say that.
well, at the moment, the armory is nowhere to be seen, and I'm more concerned with what you know about this monolith, about this. What have we gotten ourselves into? Because there's clearly more than what's on the surface with this job.
He kind of shrugs and says, I've said to you what I will say. It is not your concern. You are here to keep myself, Mariol, safe. You are not here to examine the things of the deep past. At least because, let us be frank here, you are not qualified and learned enough to do so. Just as I am incapable of hitting something monstrous with that staff of yours. I am going to go about my work now. Whether you stay or not is entirely up to you. But I will be safe down here.
He's still in the
And
yellow
you're
robes,
sure of
isn't he?
that?
Mm-hmm. I am sure.
How can you be so sure?
Because I have studied these things.
At this point, Farrah's just going to give a completely exasperated sigh and just...
Okay, look,
I'm getting nowhere
if
with this idiot.
If it's concentric rings, we can get out of here, can we? Let's give it one more shot. See if we can find the stairs up. If not, I'm sure we'll find our way back here again, and the yellow mage over there can give us some more clues.
Look, now that we know it, my thinking is that now that we know it's concentric rings, whatever that means, by the way, we can find. Look, he's here for this big rock. That's not what Mariel wants. That's not the job that we're paid to do. We need to find this bloody armory. Now that we know it's concentric rings, we can find our way back out. Let's try and see if we can find this armory.
No, let's make sure we can find our way back out first. Being more lost with a bunch of ancient weapons is just as useless as being not lost with a bunch of ancient weapons.
Okay, that I agree. I agree with you, Garar. Yes.
Gideon, how long will your work here take?
Days.
Okay.
I will come up again when it is time to eat and sleep.
Fine. Good luck.
As you kind of walk out of the domed chamber, you just hear Gideon's voice call after you. Just don't turn off the path.
I want to, as a passing Gideon, and kind of maybe a little, not surreptitiously quietly, but just conversationally rather than announcing it to everyone, I'll go like, the stone's the prisoner then, isn't it? Am I right? Did I get it?
Sorry, did you say the stone's the prison?
Yeah, the stone's the prison, yeah? This is all just like a barracks, and then that's the prison.
He looks down at you and kind of raises his eyebrows and says, perhaps it's the prisoner.
This is all quite exciting, isn't it? And terrifying.
You know he's just messing with you, don't you?
Look, that's what you magic folks do, isn't it? Illusions and trickery. Do you want to see a magic trick, is what you said, Northerner, when you lit the gutters?
Yes, but I was being helpful.
Being obtuse.
That should be pointed out that the Varaguldru have had some bad experience with magic users. I'm not going to make a load of rolls for it or anything. If you stay walking in one direction, it does take you some time, enough time that you think that perhaps Gideon was deceiving you in some way. But about half an hour later, you do, after proceeding carefully down the tunnels, reach the stairs. As long as you didn't take any turnings off, which I'm assuming you didn't. Okay.
Oh.
Half an hour might be a bit of an exaggeration, actually. Let's say 15 minutes.
Cool.
Yeah. Are we heading back up to the courtyard?
Yeah, shall we? Let's break for lunch. Let's maybe take a look in those other two rooms, and then we go and find this armory. And then maybe we kill Gideon. I don't know. I'm still making my mind up about that guy.
I don't trust him. I do not trust him. There's something weird about that guy.
As you're kind of trudging up the stairs and sharing this information, you don't need to use the torch on the stairs now, by the way. Kind of the light from those gutters definitely illuminates most of the way up the stairs for you. And as you trudge up, you hear Serek's kind of grumble from the back of the group. Stone's trouble. Scholar's trouble.
Agreed.
The forest is trouble.
Forest is always trouble.
Yep, we're 3 for 3.
Okay, you emerge out into the courtyard. There's definitely enough time to kind of maybe go back to the camp. Mariol, and kind of Mariol excitingly asks you what you found down there, and kind of where Gideon is. As a couple of you kind of like put together some food for everyone to eat.
We found.
I'll there you go.
We found some kind of corridor, a tunnel underneath this place that leads to a room beneath the stone. The stone is hanging from the ceiling almost. It's a large monolith. It's chained to the ground in this room in a kind of labyrinth. Gideon is in that room investigating in whatever way he knows how to.
And at this point, I'll step in front of him, and before Mariel, I guess, has a chance to speak, and just be like, look, he said that you know what he's doing. I would very much appreciate it if we knew who we were working for and what was happening, because he's dodgy. I'm not going to say dodgy, that'd be bad dialect, but he's just weird, mate.
Sus. He's totes sus.
Cease this at once. So Mariol kind of like pulls herself up and kind of looks at you quite sternly and says, "You will be told what you need to know for this. You are here as protection and blades and scouts. I don't see that Gideon's work is of any significance to you whatsoever."
He knows more than he's letting on, though, and we have been in this room. We've seen this thing, and I don't want to be getting involved with ancient magics that we know nothing about, unprepared.
Then perhaps you should not have taken a journey into Davakar.
I took a journey into Davakar for promise of pay, with maybe an idea of knowing what we'd be doing.
And you do know what you are doing. You are here to provide protection to Gideon and myself while we locate things of importance in these ruins. Vlador, the dwarf, who is still kind of, he's sat on the same rock he was earlier, but he's finished cleaning his nails, and now he's just kind of like sharpening his blades with a kind of screeching, scraping sound. And he looks up and looks over directly at you, Farah, and says, "A large stone."
It's clearly not natural. It's not as if it's just a boulder. It's chained to the ground. It's either
and the scholar was very interested in this.
Yes, he's down there now, as we've said.
And there's nothing else. Is there anything else?
There's something in the stone.
Forget the stone. Is there anything else? Have you
No, we
found
haven't
anything
found
else?
the armory yet. We haven't. We're trying to.
He lets out a kind of ugly and shakes his head and stands up and kind of walks off, shaking his head slightly and sheathing his blades. Mariol kind of glances over and watches his go with a little bit of a look of concern on her face, and glances at Iarso, who just kind of like shakes his head slightly.
I'm just going to I'm very angry at this point. No one's letting me know what's going on, and we're clearly in over our heads here. So I'm just going to kind of grab Elle slightly roughly by the sleeve or whatever, and just be like, let's not even bother with these fools anymore, and just kind of storm off a little bit. Not too far, still in where we are. But
yeah, sure.
I'm not dealing with any more of this Ambrian idiocy.
Sure.
I apologize for my colleague. She is easily stressed, I think.
Mariol shrugs and says, "Well, it is good that you can remember how to operate within the chain of command, Sir Aaron, and when wounded in the service of our expedition as well." Which reminds me, she turns around and kind of sort of gestures for Iaso, who reaches down in a pack and brings something out and turns to pass it to you. And you find yourself holding in your hands. Do you remember the wine carafe, the clay wine carafe from the pirate's vessel?
Yes.
Shaped like a winged meerkat, ironically, sitting on its hind legs. And she says, "I said this would go to someone who puts themselves forward for our cause, and it seems that Sir Aaron here has most definitely suffered a considerable wound while attempting to search these ruins. So I say Sir Aaron should take this treasure."
Thank you, my lady, but I didn't do it for reward. I did it so that our archer wasn't mortally wounded.
Exactly the kind of decision that leads to reward, Sir Aaron.
Well, thank you. This is very gracious.
Mariel nods and clearly feels she's regained control of the situation somewhat, and walks off with kind of Iaso to get some food of their own.
Well, that was a relaxing lunch. Shall we check out these other surface level rooms before we get back into the labyrinth?
I'm going to try and have a quick talk with Vlador if he hasn't wandered off too far.
He hasn't. He's kind of wandered in the direction of the central stone, but he hasn't kind of gone all the way up to it. He's about halfway between here and there, just kind of like stood with his arms crossed, or kind of looking at it.
Gideon described what we're looking for as an armory. Is that accurate, or do you think it's something else? So we know what we're looking for.
He doesn't kind of turn around to face you, and you see him just kind of like shrug his thick shoulders and say, "I haven't the slightest clue what is or isn't here, boy."
Do you want to?
What are you proposing?
Just that there doesn't seem to be anything here for you, and you aren't part of the Adventurers Guild, or maybe directly in Mariel's employ. And I'm grateful that you're here, certainly, but I suppose I'm wondering why.
He kind of turns at this and kind of walks kind of at a fairly measured pace up to you until he's about kind of 5 feet in front of you, and kind of he's looking, obviously he has to look up slightly, and he's looking directly at you. One hand is kind of like buried slightly in his he's got quite a neatly trimmed reddish brown beard, and he's kind of like rubbing and playing with it, and says, How's your wound?"
It's fine.
No pain?
Some pain. Not enough to stop me for now.
Easy to get.
I've had worse.
Easy to get wounded out in Davakar. Sometimes mortally. Some don't come back from these expeditions. Don't ask questions. He just I'm assuming you're quite shocked or kind of like taken aback by this, and he just
I think so.
walks around you and back to the camp.
All right then. I will put my fancy carafe somewhere safe.
Okay. at this point, let's have the people who are back at camp and have maybe been eating or something like that. So let's not have a roll from John, but everyone else, can you give me a resolute roll, please? And I'm looking for the biggest success again, like we had with the other one down below.
There is absolutely no success here.
I got a 9 out of 15.
10 out of 15.
Chris, how'd you do? No success. Okay. Let's go with Shuglud then. Okay. And I have a lovely little table here I'm going to roll on. There we go.
Very satisfying clickety clack.
Yeah, it was a D4. Shuglud, as you're sort of, I'm taking you return to the Varagouldru camp, which is just outside, and are kind of like eating. And as you do so, you're kind of like sort of munching away. Why don't you describe to me what you're, are you sat with the other goblins? Are you sort of maybe sat slightly on your own thinking about things? What are you doing?
I think I would be sat slightly on my own thinking about what had happened and the possibilities to come. Probably quite quiet, quite sullen, maybe slightly angry, but quiet about it.
Sure, absolutely. So as you're doing so, you're just kind of like eating away, perhaps absent-mindedly, as you said, and you see something from the corner of your eye, what you'd swear to be a kind of a human form standing just off in the start of the trees of the forest.
I would stand up and definitely look towards it and reach for my swords, but probably not draw them immediately.
Okay. As your hand kind of reaches down towards your blades to at least grasp them, and you kind of stand up and maybe take a pace forward to get a better look, you freeze in your tracks. Ahead of you, just in the entrance of the forest, standing kind of partially obscured by waving branches and leaves in the really quite kind of, it's a harsh, very bright spring day. You're not, it's not dark. There's nothing sort of obscuring your view particularly, but standing there for the briefest moment in the shallows of the forest is a figure all too well, wearing blackened dark armor, her piercing red eyes staring out at you from the forest edge, a cruel purple and black flaming sword hefted in her hands, and a torturously malicious and twisted expression on her mutated and abominable face. And then she's gone.
Where's Ephania when you need her?
I think I would just kind of stare after this vision. I think I'd be aware enough to know this is something playing tricks on me, but at the same time, like, there's an incredible amount of anger that Shuglud has towards this figure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would stare for quite a long time into the forest before maybe turning back to the Varagouldru and saying in Goblin, I just had a vision. There's something here. It knows we're here, and it's going to play tricks on us until something very bad happens.
Alfolg kind of leans forward and says, "What did you see, boss?"
You remember the... What was her name? Night?
Her name, she called herself the Nightblade.
I saw the Nightblade. Well, stood just here in the forest.
I'll nuke an arrow, mostly from kind of anger and frustration rather than...
Ul kind of stops his kind of maintenance of the hafts of his axes and says, But as you say, she can't come back, can she?
If she could, she wouldn't be here. This is whatever's in this place. It knows us. It's bad. It reminds me of the witch, but just bigger, worse.
She came back once after the barbarian girl took her head off, and the ogre tore her apart. But was that enough?
I would be grateful if she came back to kill her again and again, as many times as she wants to.
Alf Bolganol kind of this was clearly the right thing to say to them, and they kind of like nod firmly, and kind of like you see Ul's hands kind of like gripping hard around the hafts of the axe, and kind of Ulfbolg kind of like smacks one fist together, and clearly this is exactly the kind of thing to say to the Varagulru to steady them against fear.
What do you say, boss? Let's go check out these other rooms, see if we can find something for an honest fight instead of all this majory.
I agree. Worst comes to worst, we'll kill Gideon.
Yeah. A fine consolation prize.
Fair enough. How dare you're being mysterious in this game? Death for you. Everyone's had their meal, and the group as a whole. Serex says that he may. Serex will come with you, but the other two goblins say that they may kind of stay behind and just kind of keep an eye on things. Just maybe having someone back at the camp is, maybe a bit helpful. Farah, do you want Aurel to go with you, or to remain, or anything like that?
See, now I'm in dire straits, because before I thought safety was at the camp, but now I don't like these people. I would prefer he comes with us, purely because my anger at Mariol is fresh in my mind, and I don't trust him. Yeah. At least I know what the enemies are when we go down here.
Yeah, definitely. Let's bring that map up again, please, Steve, to look at the look at the entrances that we haven't taken so far, because that'll give us that information. Lovely, thank you. So, we've now done all the entrances except the one on the north wall and the one on the west wall. Which one do we want to tackle first?
So I think Farah would posit then go for the north wall, because it was it the southeast or the southwest that the things came from? Yeah, the Meerkats came from.
The southwest was where they
So Farah's going to vie for the north, because that's further away from the Meerkat entrance.
Yeah. Sure, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think there's much to choose between them otherwise, so yeah.
Sure, and you can do the north on the way to the west, right? So, absolutely. So let's head over to that north entrance. We're not going to go through the details of kind of like you get a torch, like you've already done that once, right? So, yeah. You reach the archway there, which, as you can see, is kind of central. Or at least I say that it is in my notes. I don't know if it is in what John's done properly.
It is in my map.
Yeah. And you see, like, you don't even need to bring the torch inside to see that there is a rock-hewn spiral staircase leading upwards, more or less immediately from the entrance.
Well, that makes a nice change, doesn't it?
Spiral staircase going up or going down? Sorry.
Going up, yeah.
Going up.
That's the only sort of place to go in this chamber.
Yep,
right?
There's no kind of corridor to either side. It's just spiral staircase going up.
Last time we went upstairs, we were ambushed.
Sure, then you go up last.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aurel and John, Aurel and Aaron at the rear. Then those who can fight go first.
Serex actually kind of stomps into position first and kind of tightens his plate armor straps and hefts his greatsword out and kind of turns it and like flips and holds it with two hands as if like the pommel and the the hilt and the guard are like like a very primitive axe, and just shrugs and says, "Hold the torch steady behind me."
Who has the torch this time, out of interest?
I don't know. Well, Aaron had it last time, so.
Okay.
If I had it now, then I was going to pass it to Aurel and draw my swords.
Sure.
Because Aurel has so far shown no affinity for combat. So.
Sure. Absolutely. So we'll do that. So Serex goes up ahead, and anyone who's immediately behind him, which we'll say is out of the remaining 4 people, lovely D4 again, is Gara, is immediately behind him, and you hear him kind of grunts something in a kind of slowly clearing over the course of the day voice about how he hates fighting on spiral staircases. And he tromps up the stairs ahead of you. You feel like there are kind of no turnings off it, no other passageways, until you all emerge blinking on top of the blackened stone of the north wall. And I think I said that the walls are about 50 feet high. Yeah, they're about 50 feet high. And ahead of you, you can see stretching out all to the north, kind of the canopy of Davakar, kind of a forest that seems endless ahead of you. And additionally, on what seem to be a kind of very basic ramparts, they're largely empty, but mounted on a stone fixture at the center of the ramparts, and therefore just by the staircase, is what looks to be a large, dark steel kettle drum. The skin on it is still intact, but seems to be discolored with some kind of old fungal bloom that has long since parched in the sun. Around the steel chest of the drum are what look like ancient etchings, and anyone getting even remotely close to them, which you can do with a pace from the top of the staircase, can see that these ancient etchings seem to have been probably intentionally marred to the point of complete obscurity. They kind of have very old looking like hacking marks on them to kind of break them apart and mar them and generally obfuscate them. And that's it.
Strange place for a drum.
I agree. I mean, anyone beating on it would receive it. With the positioning of where we are, it'd be immediately noticeable. It would ring out into Davakar, though I suppose you would be able to see what was coming this way.
Maybe that was the point.
Yeah. Send a signal or something like that. A long time ago now.
Is, like, from here, is it just the tree line that we can see, or is there
you can
any
see
of
the tree line, but also just the canopy of Davakar stretching away in all directions.
The tree line doesn't get very close to these walls, right? There was like a gap.
I think I said there was a gap of around 10 feet or so between any vegetation and the walls. Yeah.
Okay.
It occasionally the wind makes it reach out and brush the walls, but nothing gets very close, and the walls themselves have no moss, no kind of anything like that on them. And
is this alone here, or is there other debris? Is it just the kettle drum and literally nothing else, or is it just was this left here, or is it just among a bunch of other detritus?
I mean, it's definitely, it's got like a stone mount, so it looks like it's meant to be here, for sure.
Okay. And there's no way I can read any of the markings despite those marrings, anything?
Absolutely no way, no. You can only really make out that there were maybe, it looks like maybe it was some kind of bas relief or something like that on the surface of the steel, but nothing that you could really realistically get a hold of.
All right.
I think I'd maybe take a walk along the wall to at least as far as kind of where the gap in it is to see if there's anything there. Just
sure, yeah. You can take a walk along. There's no gaps, no doorways, no other passageways, anything like that. You can't see anything other than kind of very kind of rudimentary sort of ramparts, in that they haven't had like arrow holes cut in them or anything like that. It's just basically a slight rise at the edge at each edge to try and prevent you from just randomly tumbling off. But otherwise, and as I say, these walls are 20 feet wide. There's a good deal of space for you to walk around. And you didn't ask, but I'll give you it anyway. You can like look over on the other similar ramparts. You can't see anything on them, although the far one to the south is obviously quite distant from where you are. But you can't see any kind of structures or significant items or anything like that on any of the other surfaces of the walls.
Is there... You may have already described this. Is there any indication from where the drum and its base is placed to indicate whether one would face inwards or outwards when drumming?
That's a really, really good question. That I'll be honest, I hadn't anticipated anyone asking.
Yeah.
The drum...
I'm so sorry that Aaron was the one to ask it.
The drum is mounted as if the person playing it was looking out.
Okay. So it's a signal drum.
Yeah, an alarm from the outside, maybe.
To alarm that to alert people in here that something is coming from outwards, or to alert things outwards that things
maybe
are
there
coming
was
from here.
another structure and a gesture outwards.
Well, either way, it seems that this is all there is in this room. No armory to be found here.
Nice view, though.
If you can't anything in
Cool.
Davokar is nice.
Oh, it's lovely. So we're retreating back down and going for that one final archway.
Yes.
Okay, the archway on the west wall. So you head over to there. It is similar to much of the other archways in that you can't really see much into it. It looks like it's another one of those corridors kind of running down the length of the wall. But really, people are going to have to kind of go into it to take a closer look at it. I'm assuming that is exactly what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Arel's still holding that torch. So, the group of you kind of stride carefully into the archway there. It leads to what looks like a fairly decrepit corridor, running most of the length of the wall, with what look like small chambers leading off it a bit further down to the south.
So if this was a kind of prison, would this be cells? Would this have been holding? Or...
I think this may be a single occupancy prison. And I think its inmate is of supernatural origin. So maybe this is more of a barracks than a cell block.
So the rock is the prisoner. And I'm out of character. I'm assuming that we didn't hear the little discussion Garrar had with Gideon.
No, that was definitely between Gideon and Garrar. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think. What do you reckon, meddling northerner coming into these Symbaric ruins and creating chaos? Do you think that would make sense? Some profane and ancient spirit tied inside a stone and chained for eternity?
Just nothing else about this place speaks to a prison meant to hold people. No cells, no protections, no jail, no doors of any kind. The only thing that's chained is this rock. That's either what's holding or what's being held. And I don't see anything else that's meant to do it. And everything else is protection, and no life makes its way in here beyond a handful of things. No plant life. It is keeping everything else out and just this thing in. However, what's down this way may be the armory that we're looking for, so it's worth our time.
Okay, so I take it people are kind of proceeding down this corridor. Could everyone give me some vigilant rolls, please? Just give me a thumbs up if you made it. And a double
Double
thumbs
thumbs
up if
up.
you rolled a 1. You rolled a 1. Nice.
I also rolled a 1.
Nice. Okay. Well, then I'll say what the other person who didn't get a 1 but did succeed, which is Gara, got. Gara, as you're walking down, you notice sort of clumps of dust and fragments of basalt, kind of like just kind of sort of not bursting as in violently, but just kind of bursting in little clouds out from the ceiling with every sort of step that the group takes. And the two people who rolled 1s, Farah and Shugled, you hear a very quiet but distinct creaking overhead. Like rock grinding against rock.
I'll immediately obviously look upwards, and
there's nothing kind of up there. It's just you can hear some worrying noises.
Yeah, I guess I was wanting to see if there was any any dust coming from it, that sort of thing. And
you guys also see that dust and like little fragments of basalt coming out.
And I'm just going to immediately kind of like whip round because I think I'm more at the front, and like something's moving around up there. I can hear it.
Something up above. Is there any staircase in here that goes up?
There doesn't seem to be a staircase, no.
Would it be worth someone running back to the staircase in the other room, go onto the rampart, see if they can see it from there, or is it inside? I don't know.
If everyone can give me a cunning roll, and if you succeeded, take a +1. If you succeeded on the 1, then take a +2.
Nope.
Well, Gara got it. It might not be something moving around up there. You have this corridor looks very decrepit. This structure is very old. It might not be a kind of self-aware threat, but one purely of architecture.
May I posit that this is not some antagonist, but that this tunnel may not be entirely stable, and maybe we should step back out and go in a little bit more fleet of foot.
I'm all for not getting trapped under a pile of rock.
Yeah.
Not the way to go.
Would it be possible to reinforce it somehow?
Maybe. That would take time. I say, Shuglud, do you want to go with me? We're lighter. We can go quieter than these ones.
Yeah. I'm happy to go ahead. That will find too much in here if it's this unstable anyway.
We'll rescue the torch from our non-combat colleague.
Okay, so you, the rest of the group leave out, and Shuglud and Gara remain behind. Can you both give me discreet rolls +1, please?
Yeah.
Is that a
Nope.
a success? Nope.
Failed by 2.
Nope. Okay, then let me roll a die. Yeah. Okay. You take a few more kind of careful paces forwards, and that material is still shaking loose from the ceiling above, but definitely in less quantities than now. But even now, Shuglud, you can hear a slight creak ahead of you as you're walking forwards. You are just about flush with the first of the chambers off to one side. You can look in it, and it is a very small chamber, maybe around 6 feet by 6 feet, and it is completely empty.
Nothing in there.
Yeah, I will call that back. First chamber's empty.
There look to be a few a few more entrances ahead of you. Let's say 3 of them.
Come on, in for a foul or in for a shilling.
Okay, that will be another discreet roll, please.
Okay.
+1, sorry.
I made it.
Okay. You make your way to the next chamber. It is identical to the last, up to the point and including its emptiness.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Third
Okay.
time's the charm.
Onto the penultimate one. Another discreet roll without the +1, please.
Made it. I got 4.
Failed.
But Gara did not. I'm going to roll a die.
It's never good when the DM rolls a die.
It is not.
It's definitely not in this specific case.
Uh-oh.
So you take a few paces more, and there is a creak overhead, and both of you kind of freeze in place. It seems to pass, and you take one step more, and that was the step too far. There is a rumble and another great creak and the sound of just cracking overhead. I don't want to speak for players, but I'm really assuming at this point that you're going to try and get out of there as quickly as possible.
I'm scrambling out.
Oh, you guys are already back at the other end, I would assume.
I hope so.
Were you? Did you just let the others go further forward? Are you still in the corridor, or are you back at the
I think
start?
I was stood in it, but like right near the beginning.
Yeah,
Just
very
in
close
case.
to the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are safe-ish,
Cool.
you know? So that's fine. Gara and Shuglud, I'm assuming you're scrambling to get out of there. Again, I know it is a horrible GM sin to assume your action, but yeah. In which case, can you both give me a quick roll, please?
Okay.
Quick is not my dump stat.
I rolled a 2. Nice.
Okay, nice. In that case, the damage you take from the falling chunks of stone and masonry is halved. So that's a good thing. So do you want me to roll for the damage and then you roll for armor? Do you want to roll for the damage as well? It's up to you.
You can roll damage.
That's nice. Okay, well, seeing as Sam gave me that permission, I'll roll for him first. So there we go. Oh, that's almost as high as it could have been. So give me an armor roll, please.
Okay, I'm going to use my ability that gives me an extra armor die for 1 temporary corruption.
Nice.
And I get 7 armor. 3 and a
Ooh,
4.
that's pretty strong. Pretty strong. Strong enough, in fact, that while you feel like various kind of chunks of rock hit you as you go out, you feel like a nasty one on your shoulder, but you feel like are you wearing kind of heavy leathers, that kind of thing? Or
I think I do have like leather armor, but just like a leather vest. But my extra armor comes from my rune tattoo.
Oh, your runic tattoo, yeah. You feel an impact on your shoulder, and as soon as it does so, you feel like the heat as your runic tattoo kind of flares up, and it's Ensorcel sorceries protecting you from harm. And you think it would have been a nasty blow otherwise, but you scramble out and up to the safety of the rest of the party quite successfully. Let's see how Gara does. Cool. Can you give me a armor roll, please, Gara?
So it's not a defense roll; it's an armor roll.
Yeah, just an armor roll. That's fine.
Okay. Oh, 4. Delightful.
Nice.
Precisely what you needed as well. You dive ahead of most of the scattering of rock and stone, and obviously you get a couple of nicks and bruises, but when you get to the end and look back and see just the absolute collapsed, debris-ridden mess that is what remains of the corridor behind you, you both consider yourselves quite lucky. Although I guess luck in surviving is kind of questionable for the Varagouldru, but this wasn't in combat, so maybe not. Without a significant team of people to shift this rock and brace it, as in probably professional miners, no one is going down this corridor.
I'll step out back into the light, and in Goblin, I will just kind of quite triumphantly shout, "It's going to take actual enemies to bring down the Varagouldru, you stupid building!"
Shuglud will laugh.
Right
Said
then, so that's that. That's our last a bit exhausted. I believe we should go down to where Gideon is, see if he's made any progress. There could possibly be. We only found one room in that labyrinth. There could be more to find.
Yeah,
as well.
And if we just keep going straight and not retrace our steps, then maybe, because there seems to be 3 states. There seems to be the state where we go straight and we come to the conclusion of whatever twisted labyrinth is there. There's the state where we turn around and become lost until we start taking the right decision. And there's the state where we find the central chamber. So,
Precisely.
Valdemar, can you break any of this stupid sorcery?
I'm not even sure it's all in our heads, but would I know of any way to look through that? Because I'm leaning towards, even though it's kind of got a limitation of yes or no, I'm leaning towards at this point throwing out Augur to try and find our way there and doing a fortune-telling ritual to see if that can cut through a lot of this if we have the time.
You really kind of obviously like magics within the world of Symbaroum have very few hard and fast rules to them, other than it always corrupts you. But like, so really you don't know. You certainly don't know what the parameters of things built thousands of years ago by by Symbaroum would do. Everything you've encountered seems to not have any special rules to it, certainly not between them. So you really have very little clue.
Yeah. I'll sort of relay the same. There's no telling what symbolic magics are going on here and what their intention was and how they relate to our intention or our direction or our state of mind. But I think we have to, if we go in with the intent of following and taking that straight path, at least for a start, and one by one, we need to at least talk to Gideon about what's in the other rooms there to find this armory. But there may be magics that could possibly help if we get too turned around and lost. I still think that in itself is the prison chamber there, and it is trying to keep people or something in. So we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And speaking of Gideon, I'm assuming this conversation is happening as you're walking back towards the camp. Does that seem about right? As you're walking back to the camp, you can see that the sun is kind of starting to dip in the sky. It's already gone over the edge of the walls, so almost everything in here has this kind of shadow cast over it by the vast fortress-like structure. And as you approach, you can see Gideon kind of walking out from, obviously has come up the stairs and out from the labyrinth and is walking back towards the camp. Seems very much kind of in a world of his own, sort of like, just kind of gently kind of like, touching his nose and kind of fiddling with his robes as if kind of lost in thought. Everyone else is at the camp. Obviously the other 2 goblins, the other members of the Varaguldru, and Maril. Everyone seems there, and you can see kind of there's some cooking smells wafting over as the evening meal is being prepared.
Oof. Dinner, then labyrinth. Dinner, sleep, then labyrinth.
Dinner, sleep, then labyrinth. I don't want to traverse that in night.
Absolutely. Why doesn't everyone? Well, we've already had a little thing for Shugled on the random tables. So why doesn't everyone else who isn't Shugled give me a vigilant roll this time, please, rather than a resolute roll?
It's a 12. That's a fail.
Wow.
Fail from everyone. Who got the closest though? 12.
13.
Did anyone get lower than 12?
I was within 2. Okay.
I was 11.
I was within 3.
Nope.
Okay. Well, it sounds like Valdemar got the closest then. So why don't we have a roll of on the table? Yeah.
Scary
okay.
sound.
Yeah. As you're walking over, you can see that further over by the campfire, kind of Elmea is cooking, and Mariol is kind of stood over her as she's cooking with her hands kind of like clasped behind her back. Just seems to be just conversing with her. And over on this side of the camp, closest to you, you can see that Iarso and Vlador. So Iarso, Mariol's bodyguard, and Vlador the dwarf are kind of talking with each other. and you can also see that kind of like he also has his back to you guys coming over, so you can't really hear you. Let's say you're ahead of the group, just to give an excuse why this isn't apparent to everyone and only to you. So you're kind of the one ahead, maybe aiming to intercept Gideon or talk to him in some way about something. And as you approach the two of them standing there, you can hear Iaso is kind of talking in quite hushed but quite forceful tones to the dwarf. And he's saying, as you're coming closer, it definitely seems to be a kind of almost threatening tone to him. You can't see Iaso's demeanor, but because he's got his back to you, but you can see Vlador's face. He seems unconcerned and even slightly amused, which seems odd to you, considering that Iaso is twice his height and a great swaggering brute with a great axe. Or a long axe, rather. And as you get closer, you hear him say something vaguely intimidating to finish off. But you also hear something, I guess, slight and unusual. Iaso does not call him Vlador. Iaso calls him Maretko. And the dwarf doesn't seem to think this is unusual. He doesn't register anything. But his eyes kind of like Iaso kind of like gives him one last stare and kind of stalks off. And the dwarf glances kind of over at you and still with a kind of slightly amused expression on his face, and just sort of kind of barely acknowledges you with a direct glance, and then turns and wanders off to himself.
The name doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, that's a question.
Okay.
How much, obviously without going too much into like our backstories in the wider world, how much time do you think Vardamar would have spent in Indaros, which is the capital of Ambria, much further south than Davakar? I'm willing to bet little to none.
Yeah, I was going to say not much, if any.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do not know the name Maretko or the word Maretko or whatever it is.
Okay. But Vlador, or whomever he is, has stormed off. He's not sort of hanging around.
Yeah, he's definitely, he's wandering off quite casually, in fact.
Okay.
Like, he seems unconcerned by the entire exchange.
Okay. I think Vardamar is absolutely at the point where he feels any secrets being withheld are at this point a liability and a risk to everyone else, at least in their initial group there. Mm-hmm. So he's going to abandon plans to confront Gideon for now and just, either pull Shuglud or Aaron or someone nearby his side. If they're all together, great. But if they're away from the rest of Mariel's contingent, and just have a quick word.
It definitely feels like the group is starting to coalesce a bit more with the goblins than with Mariel's sort of elite, I suppose. So should we say perhaps that everyone is, say, sat around the goblins' campfire, perhaps probably eating the food that Elmayer has provided, but that should give Vardamar a chance to say whatever he needs to say.
Yeah. And without making a fuss about it, as we're sort of sitting down having a meal and just trying to make sure we're not being overheard there. In a very sort of casual tone. Does the name Maretko mean anything to anyone?
So, who among you thinks they will have spent time in Indaros? Aaron, almost certainly.
Yep.
Farah, I'm guessing not.
Davakar. Yeah,
Davakar and Thistlehold is basically it, right?
I've been Davakar, that's it.
The Variguldru, I'm happy for them to have, over the course of their fairly mercenary existence to this point, I'm happy for you to have been somewhat south in Ambria. But it's entirely up to you.
I think we'd have mostly stayed towards the forest.
That's fair enough. That's absolutely fair enough. Aaron, then, could you give me a cunning roll at +5, please?
Oh, I've got a chance. Pass. Needs 12, got a 10.
Nice.
Maretko, Moretko, rather, is a name you know not personally very well, but generally very well indeed. Most people in Inderos know that name very well indeed, because there are a number of dwarf families within Inderos that the general populace is aware that you should not cross them under any terms, and you also, if your business is being offered to be protected by them in exchange for just some payments and maybe some services rendered, you should definitely probably take that offer. And also, if you're operating in certain areas in matters which may be illicit, you will probably want to ensure that you pay the Moretko. Yeah, I mean, I'm skirting around the term dwarf mafia, but essentially, there are a number of dwarf families within Inderos who are extremely powerful, organized crime organizations, and the Moretko are a notorious one of them.
Right.
The dwarfia, as it were.
Yes.
They are...
Cosa dwarfra.
Casa Shorta?
Yeah.
A dwarf family from Inderos. Family, clan, organization. Where did you hear this?
I may have heard Iaso refer to our dwarf friend by this name, who gave no significant reaction to it, which leads me to indicate it's some other name for him. What's the history of these dwarves?
By some, not very favored. They... I'm going to shoot a quick glance at all of that other party and make sure we are not being overheard.
Yeah, they're off, eating their own food.
They are the sort of family that exchanges protection for payment, and one would go to if one were to make a career out of doing things that the city guard might not want them to.
That is possibly the most circumlocutory way of saying what you need to, but I think the gist has gotten there.
They are not a family to cross.
I see.
So they're not above board then, and we need to be sure we keep on his good side. I think it'd be best if you didn't let on that you'd heard any of that conversation, Vardamar.
I think he might know that I did. Which is fine. He didn't seem to mind too much, and maybe he thinks I won't know or that it won't matter, but I'm certainly in no hurry to draw his ire knowing this. I just wonder why he's here.
You are muted.
Thank you. Serix, who is stood a little bit away from the fire, and he kind of half has his back to the group, and he has his flask in his hand, and he's kind of like spun the top off it with one thumb and is pouring what's in it onto the forest floor with a sort of a very grumpy expression on his face. And he says, "Why does a Kohinoor need a member of a crime syndicate on an expedition?"
I may have overheard a conversation that could lead one to infer that he may be financing this in exchange for something.
Oh, Prios, I chose the wrong time to do this. He tosses his flask out into the edge of the forest.
So he has a vested interest, and given his reaction, might be looking for whatever is in that armory himself.
Given the conversation that he was a part of, it was earlier this day, wasn't it, rather than last night?
With the conversation I heard, or the conversation Vardamar had?
No, the conversation not that. You know, when we came back in the interim, and Vardar was like
With
laughing
when he asked about the armor,
Yeah.
when he asked about the armory.
Yes.
Yeah, that was earlier today.
Yes. Given the conversation that we had with him when we took our break here, he knows more than he lets on. There's clearly a reason he wants to be here. And if we are technically now under almost his employ rather than Mariel's, we'd best... I don't want to get tangled up in Dwarven black market.
Well, look, none of this sounds like a good reason not to kill the Yellow Mage.
I concur.
So Serex turns back towards you all and says, sleep will not fix any of this, but it'll make me feel better for sure. And then tomorrow we go down into that labyrinth and we try and find an armory. Agreed?
I agree.
Yeah,
we should definitely rest up.
All right. Alfbolg leans kind of over the campfire towards Shuglin, and in Goblin he says, "I'll keep an eye on the dwarf."
Thanks, Alfbolg.
He's probably the only goblin you could think of who's actually larger than the dwarf. So you all, there's obviously a watch set, and you all kind of go to sleep, and then we wake. Let's just pass through a fairly, probably a not a particularly restful night. Nothing occurs as such, or does it? Actually, let's throw a little quick thing in here. Let's have another resolute roll, please, and let's have that just from Chris, Elle, and John, who are the people who haven't had any of the random table things, because I want to share these out. So a resolute roll, and let me know if you succeeded, and if not, how close you came. So forth.
I got a 19, so we are definitely very far from succeeding.
How'd you do, Chris?
I rolled a 7, which is great, except that my resolute is a 5.
Okay, but that's only 2 off. How did you do, John?
Mine was 5 off. I rolled a 15
Okay.
and needed a 10.
So, Gara, you're going to get a thing. So let's have a roll on this, and there we go. Garrett, essentially, it's only a little bit more to add to what I said. Within the night, you find yourself waking up several times. And every time you wake up, you find yourself just feeling a little more and more unsettled. You know, when you just have those nights where the shadows creep in and you just feel like something's off, and maybe if you're the kind of person who's paranoid about ghosts or aliens, or you just you feel like there's someone in your room. You have that, but obviously in the rather even more unsettling environs of being, or at least camped just outside this prison. And the last couple of times you wake up, you almost feel like there's someone near you, someone reaching out for you. And the very last time, the time which wakes you up sort of with a great start, you feel like there's someone leaning over you as you sleep and just reaching out towards you. You feel a kind of that sleep paralysis pressure on your chest, difficulty taking a breath. And then you start awake and it is bright morning sunlight around you. You kind of wake up, rub your eyes blearily, and you find your hands are shaking as you touch your face. You look around you and you see the 2 people on watch, Elle Mayer over by the other campsite, and Serex kind of walking between the 2, kind of scruffing at the messy hair on the back of his head. The 2 people on watch there pacing around, and you kind of look to either side of you, and you realize something with a horrible sinking feeling of deja vu. Alfbolg is not in his bedroll. And I think we will end the session there for the night with yet another. We have a tradition here. A Varaguldru goes missing and we end a session. That's what we do. That's the Telling Tales way of doing things. Thank you to everyone for... obviously, thank you to all my players for playing. Thank you to Steve for being our wonderful stream manager. I'll do a little bit of promo, and then after that, we'll answer any questions or comments that people want to sling in the chat. So if you've got anything that you want us to talk about, pop it in there, and Steve will flash it up on screen for us to talk through. Actually, he can't flash it up on screen. I forgot because of the way in which this streaming out to Free League works. But he can copy it into our private chat, and we'll talk about it then. So if you have any questions or comments, whack them in there. In the meantime, hi, we're Telling Tales. We're doing this through the lovely Free League, who are allowing us to stream every other Sunday here for the kind of foreseeable future. I don't know exactly how many sessions we've got left in this, but this has been Fetters of Stone. It is a spin-off from our central Symbaroum campaign. That's on hiatus at the moment, but it's coming back in a couple of weeks. If you want to catch up on it, there are VODs aplenty over on our YouTube. If you search for us on YouTube or Twitch, we are Telling Tales RP. In fact, the address is right down below for our Twitch at the bottom of the screen here. Through that, you'll find links to our various other things: social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. There's our Discord, where you can join up and talk to us about all things Telling Tales and all things roleplay. We have a Patreon if you want to sling us some cash in return for some lovely rewards. That is also easily found. We run 3 weekly shows over on Twitch. Mondays is Call of Cthulhu, Tuesdays is Blades in the Dark at the moment, and Wednesday at the moment is Coriolis, but it will be Symbaroum again soon. We also run monthly one-shots on the first Saturday of every month. We've run a whole load of them this year, including a couple from Free League, like Alien and Borg. And also the next one is going to be from Free League. Clearly they pay us. They sponsor us. This is entirely corrupt. No, but this coming one-shot, which is on the Saturday, the 7th of August, I'll be running the alpha build of the new One Ring RPG, which I'm really looking forward to. I liked the old Cubicle 7 version of One Ring. It's also got an exciting twist on it, that I'll be running an adapted story from the Lord of the Rings online MMO. So that will be good fun. Join us for that. That is over, as is all our other stuff on our Twitch channel and our YouTube. Yeah. That's the promo. That's all the promo things. So, yeah, like I say, if anyone has any comments or questions, sling them in chat. We have something here from Lord Malice. Hi, Malice. Good to see you. What's everyone's suspicion about what the prison is holding?
I'm guessing some kind of elder god trapped in the rock.
Is this like in-player suspicion, or like in character suspicion, or player?
Either or. Like, answer it for realsies or for charactersies.
So I think in character suspicion, Farah is pretty. She's not the most like worldly wise, so she's just like big rock evil. That's the extent of her knowledge. And she thinks
that is
Gideon evil. And in person, I'm going with what John says. Some sort of evil elder god in the rock.
I get strong Phantom Zone from Superman vibes from it. Just like some extra dimensional place to keep someone really, really bad. And since it's just the one person, I'm assuming that was a really particularly bad person.
It would be like peak Games Master confidence if it's literally Zod in there.
I'm here for it. I'm here for that crossover.
If you did that, I will play any game UDM from that moment on. If we end up kneeling to Zod, that is the strongest move I've ever seen.
So we do have a Patreon, and I know that Matt has a price. So
I definitely have a price.
Get in touch.
If this is the DC Symbaroum crossover, no one knew they wanted. Absolutely. Any other takers on what's inside the prison?
I think it's going to be standard issue sketchy elf, isn't it? That's what tends to be entombed in evil things in the heart of Davokar.
What about Gollum? Gollum would be like not like Lord of the Rings Gollum, but like Golem Golem. That'd be pretty cool if it's like
I see. Yeah, like an earth elemental thing. Yeah,
maybe the prison is the armory.
I don't like
maybe the real
Maybe the prison is the friends we met along the way.
Damn it.
That's how I feel about my friendships.
Yeah, it's how I feel about my prisons. So next up, another one from Malice. And who will be the next to go missing?
That's an easy one.
Goblin.
Gotta be definitely.
The remaining Haragultru.
We are running out of
Absolutely
NPCs, and that is a feat given the rich roster we had started with.
No,
Why would you
because
think I had so
Orel.
many?
I
There's
must
also
say,
Orel.
Yeah.
I must say, after finding out that he got threatened by a member of the Yindaros Mafia, Aaron is very worried that he's next.
He will, yeah.
Be an awful shame if something would have happened to you, sword guy. I'd hate to see anything happen to a pretty face like yours, kid. Yeah,
Things happen in
I
Death
was
Valley.
so it was every time I have any kind of organized crime character, it's so tempting to immediately go into that. At least partly because, like, I have a very long running offline Vampire the Masquerade campaign that's using the setting of Chicago by Night, and one of the vampires in Chicago by Night is literally Al Capone.
Hey, forget about it.
Yeah, exactly that kind of authentic. Yeah, absolutely. And I had to fight every urge in my body to not make him like what my impression of a 1930s Chicago gangster is, which is, for the record, not good.
No, I will need to hear this at some point, just to fully feel my country's warm embrace around it.
Sure. Honestly, it's just basically saying things in a kind of generic, slightly nasal American accent, and then adding "see" on the end. Like it's pretty limited.
Yeah, see? That's it.
Yeah, you see, you're in deep trouble now. See, whatever. Yeah. I know. Obviously, this just feels like home for you now, Alex. But
it's like I'm back. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, there we go. I think I don't think we've got any more comments or questions unless someone's popped them in. No, we're good. We're good. So thank you to everyone again. Thank you to Free League for hosting us. Yeah, and let's have that outro now, Steve. We'll see you in 2 weeks, folks. Goodbye.